Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
That's brand new Starbreaker featuring Tony Harnell on lead vocal. And the name of that tune right there is called End of Alone. And, of course, you know Tony Harnell. He's a former lead singer of TNT. And he has a new project, or actually this would be the sophomore release, I believe. Or actually this might be your third release, right, Tony?
It's the second, yeah.
Second
You're
release,
right, sophomore.
Right. Of Starbreaker, and we want to welcome Tony Harnell back to the Classic Metal Show. This will be your third time on the show, Tony.
Wow, I'm like a resident now.
Yeah, the first time I got a chance to talk to you is when TNT more or less kind of came back with My Religion.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, was a phenomenal CD. I love it. In fact, we played the song My Religion on the show by request just a week ago.
Oh, great.
So people still remember that, and I was impressed that after, so many years, TNT made a comeback with such a strong effort, and not only that, but being able to see it in some of the major distribution centers, such as like Best Buy and Walmart and so forth. And you guys had a pretty good run with that.
Yeah, it did well for us. We did very well in Europe with it. It opened up some new doors, and we got a couple new countries where we got popular again, which is always nice late in your career. Sold very well in what we call our home country of Norway.
Sure.
My former home country. No, I still have quite a lot of affinity for that country, obviously. No, it was great. It was a great run, and I'm very proud of that album.
Right. So then you came back with a follow-up to that CD, and it. And this isn't a criticism of you, but it wasn't quite as strong or as rockin' as My Religion. It kind of got soft on us, Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. I fully intended on doing actually a heavier album than My Religion. That was my intention, but you're in a band and you're working with other people, and it just didn't. We rolled the dice and they didn't line up. So
sure.
That's kind of the way it happened. I mean, you try to when you're on a roll. I think you sometimes try to get a record out every year, and with the distance involved, I think it makes it a little bit more difficult to keep the creative juices flowing especially between two people.
Right.
If one person's on a roll, it's easy for them to maybe knock out 2 or 3 really great records, which a lot of solo artists do. But I think when you're in a band and you're dependent upon other people, and you're compromising and you're, dependent on somebody else for that ultimate result, then sometimes it's a hit or miss.
Right. Well, obviously you're no longer in the band TNT, and we haven't had you on the show since you left the band a couple years ago. Can you give us kind of a brief rundown there as to what made you decide to leave the band and, go on your own more or less and, do your Starbreaker music? What led up to that? Anything you can tell us about?
I mean, I don't really want to air any dirty laundry, but it was, let's just say that it had run its course finally for me. I think it just had, it was a great run, a lot of stuff that I'm very proud of, and obviously a lot of exciting times, both in the early days and even some of the recent days. So I thought it was. I just had felt that between the traveling and the just the distance and the payoff, they weren't equal.
Sure.
The amount of work involved, the amount of stress on the body, physically, mentally, with all that traveling, and you have to travel when you're in a rock band, but the way that we were doing it, where there were times when I was going back and forth to Europe as much as 10 times a year, And so I felt like I kind of had jet lag for 4 years.
Right.
You know, I pretty much didn't have much of a break from that. So I think I was just kind of tired of that, and you know, there were some personal things going on as well, and so it all sort of added up. You know, you make those lists, the pros and the cons were far greater. So I just made the decision that if it was going to happen, it needed to happen now, and I wanted to make my move and go do other things musically, and you know, it may sound a bit strange, but if it was a big band of more stature, then obviously the way that things were organized and the time and travel involved would have been more palatable.
Sure, sure.
With more money and more payoff involved, you know.
Right.
Because it is my job after all.
Right, sure. Now, I know when I had spoken to you for the release of All the Way to the Sun, you were already... you had mentioned that during the interview about all the traveling and, you know, being a little weary of the travel and, you know, how you know, it was taking a toll on you at that point. And then, you know, what was it, about a year later that you announced your departure from that. So, who could say? I couldn't blame you for that. That's a lot of traveling back and forth from the States to Europe and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and, you know, you have to imagine if you were in a normal situation, let's say with a band that puts a record out every year and then goes on tour, which, you know, I mean, touring and releasing records has obviously changed dramatically over the past 5 years, you know, 5-10 years. But if you were doing somewhat of a normal routine, you'd release an album and you would maybe hit the States, and then maybe you'd go over to Europe for a month or so, and then maybe you'd go to Asia, and then you'd come home. So you'd sort of constantly be moving, but you do it kind of more or less in one long go, and you might even have breaks in between where you came home for a few weeks or a month and then went back out again and so forth. But when you're bouncing back and forth like that, it's not the length of the flight that's so exhausting. It's the jet lag.
Sure.
And being expected to do a top-notch performance 1 or 2 nights after arriving. I just was starting to feel like I wasn't giving my best, and being the perfectionist that I am, that wasn't good enough for me. So,
well, you're not in your 20s either.
I'm not. Wow, somebody told me yesterday that I looked like I was, and I was really very happy with that compliment. No, that's true. I mean, I keep myself in pretty good shape, but yeah, you know, even at 20, back and forth like that is takes its toll. The only difference is when you're 20, you probably don't eat as well as I do now.
Yeah, sure. Well, Tony, I was telling you off the air here that this new Starbreaker release that is currently available is probably, you know, you're sounding very fresh and very youthful on this. Speaking of age and youth.
Well, thank you.
And this is, you know, I've always enjoyed your vocal style in TNT. And what was your other project? I know you had another project.
Westworld.
There you go. I know I have both of those CDs too.
That's right. And then I had another one, a one-off called Morning Wood, which was actually a fan favorite.
Sure. So when you do these different projects, I realize that TNT was a collaboration. And you know, you had your Westworld, and you have this Starbreaker. How do you distinguish between all these projects and the way that you approach the music, or do you approach it all the same way in each situation?
It's a very interesting thing. I mean, they're all obviously different. The guys I work with in each project are different, so what they bring to the table is different. So I try to adjust to the person I'm working with, and they're all of them have been extremely talented in their own way, and they're all very different from each other. With Magnus, he's very fast, and he's very professional, and he's very easy to work with. He's really laid back, and it's kind of a situation where I felt like on this last record we did that I was kind of that I could kind of take what he does naturally and just sort of, I guess you could say, direct it a little bit into a certain, area, point him down the path, and say, let's go down here and see what this looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was really cool, and it's still very much as much his album as it is mine. His influence is very strong on it. So there's always a compromise there when you're working with somebody in that situation. But when I do these albums for Frontiers Records, which is a melodic rock label, there's no bones about it. They are what they are, and they have a very specific audience. I know what I have to do. So there's compromise on two levels. There's the compromise of working with a guitarist that has his own background, his own style, his own, the way that he does things, and really even pointing him in a certain direction, he's still going to produce music that's very much coming from where he's coming from. So you have that compromise, but you also have the compromise of knowing that you're on a label that wants a certain thing. Now, what I do is I try to push that envelope as hard as I can.
Sure.
And so I think what's interesting about the new Starbreaker is that it's got elements of what people know and love about, or what I should say, I don't know if they love it, but what they know and expect from me, from my whole history. But it also has a lot of new elements that I worked into it. Tried to keep things a little bit contemporary, but without being too trendy. I didn't want it to come off like a trendy thing, like we were following something. I just wanted to use some of the new technologies, and we did that. We used some loops, and there's a little bit of a goth influence on this one. Some tuned down guitars, and just a different attitude. It's kind of a very, I guess, a dark album. Some people have described it as like a dark AOR, I think somebody said recently in a review, which I think describes it pretty well. It's got a lot of dark elements to it.
Sure.
Kind of sad, kind of dark, But a lot of that is because of the music. A lot of minor key stuff, a lot of tuned down guitars. But, yeah, so the difference, I guess, is with TNT, Ronnie and I had such a relationship with writing that, we would just get together and hang out basically with a guitar sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And after an hour or two or whatever, things would just start to come very naturally. And we knew instinctively what our albums had to sound like, So in each of these situations, I guess what I'm trying to say, there's a compromise, and you try to put as much of yourself and as much of what you would like to do into each project as possible, while considering, for example, what the label wants and considering what you think the fan wants. And unfortunately, and fortunately, at my level, that's kind of what you have to do. But I think bands on bigger levels do it as well. I mean, you look at AC/DC, for example, and they certainly know what their fans want. They want those same three chords played in 50,000 different ways,
Sure.
And it works.
Well, I saw that you had done a interview for melodicrock.com, which obviously is a big supporter of yours, and I guess the question had come up if you had listened to or heard any of the TNT material with Tony Mills, and I guess your answer was that you weren't interested in hearing it, or you hadn't heard it. It was like meeting the new girlfriend of the ex-boyfriend or something to that effect.
No, I think I described it as walking in, even though you're over your ex and you've moved on, you still don't really want to watch her having sex with the new guy.
Right.
And that's kind of I just I don't want to have to sit and compare and sit and think either good or bad. I don't want to sit and go, oh God, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I wish Ronnie would have had that riff when I was in the band, or God, he's singing really great on this. This sounds better than ever. And at the same time, I don't want to say, oh God, they've ruined all I've worked for with that band. You know, they've tarnished the name and the reputation and all that. So I just, either way, if I go there, it takes time away from what I want to do now. It takes energy and all of that away from just moving forward. I decided to leave to move forward, so I don't want to get stuck in it, you know.
Right.
Worrying about what they're doing. It's not my business anymore.
Well, I can tell you as a TNT fan, you're not missing anything.
Okay. Well, you know, I mean, I've heard that from a lot of people, but, you know, with all due respect to Ronnie, he's a very original and innovative musician, and when you're like that, sometimes you hit and sometimes you don't, but I got to respect him for going for it, and
sure.
I think I have a lot of respect for musicians that do that, because every now and again you'll hit on a piece of magic, and hopefully he'll hit on more magic than not as the future, you know, moves forward. But I think you know, they did very well in Norway. From what I hear, the album did well. It was very well received by the critics there. So I think they're kind of going, if I've heard correctly, they're kind of going for being a mainstream band in that country, and kind of not really worried about continuing on with the fans from around the world.
Right.
And that's got two edges to it, because on one side you're going to lose your worldwide fan base, which was obviously a lot bigger than their fan base in Norway, but they live in Norway, except for the singer, and so I guess it's more lucrative for them to have high charting albums there, where they can be on television and play big shows and so forth.
Sure, why not? Well, good. Well, now now you're back with your second Starbreaker release, and I know you just went through the whole gamut of and kind of described it for us. Who's in the band with you here? Who makes up Starbreaker?
We got Magnus Carlsen on guitar, who people might know from the Alan Landa records, and also from Last Tribe, and he just joined a pretty big metal band in Europe called Primal Fear.
Oh yeah, we love Primal Fear.
Yep, and he just finished Bob Catley's solo album, his new solo album from Magnum. And so he's great. He's becoming a very well-known and respected guy over in Europe. And, of course, Swedish, you know, something about the water in Scandinavia, I guess. And I have Johnny Macaluso on drums, who's an old buddy. He played with me in TNT on the Realized Fantasies album in '92. And we have Johnny Lightfoot on bass, who's the new addition to the project. And he's just fantastic. I can't say enough good things about him. He's fantastic, and he added such a beautiful, warm tone to the production, and his playing was just perfect, and the right things at the right time. So,
no relation to Gordon Lightfoot.
No, I don't think so.
Well, what is the intent of what do you foresee doing with Starbreaker? Or do you look at yourself as just basically a studio recording act, or do you intend on doing some road work, or maybe getting into some festivals, or what do you intend on doing, or hope that might happen for your band?
It's hard to say. You know, we're all so busy doing other things, and all of us are. You know, we're all making a lot of music, doing other stuff. So it's hard to say. I mean, if I think that we're all open to it. If something really cool came along, if a door swung open and somebody offered us some, you know, a really great festival or a few festivals, it would have to be something that would be worthwhile enough for all of us to get together in one city and rehearse and put a show together. Because you have to imagine, now Johnny Lightfoot is in Utah, John and I are in New York, and Magnus is in Sweden. So it would take, you know, quite the effort to get us all to do it. We'd love to, but I think as of now I could say pretty safely that it is a studio project, but it's a studio project we're all very proud of.
Sure. Now, in this day and age of digital downloading and whatnot, I hear a lot of artists. We interview quite a few artists here on the Classic Metal Show who basically have made the claim that it's almost not worth recording an album anymore. Especially if you're an established act that's been around. It's just like, we've got enough records under our belt. A lot of people come out basically to hear the old tunes anyway. With all the downloading going on, illegal or legal downloading, and it goes, being that there aren't any real big labels anymore, or big tour support, or recording budgets anymore, it's just like it's not worth recording anymore. So what keeps you doing that?
The love for songwriting and the love of what I can create in the studio. There's nothing more satisfying to me than completing a new song that you're really proud of and being able to sit back and listen to it finished and go, wow, that sounds really good, and having it move people.
Sure.
So I understand, that the bigger bands are saying that, but, it's kind of funny because David Coverdale said that about, 2 or 3 years ago, and then recorded a new Whitesnake record last year. So
Right, absolutely.
So, I think that if you love to write songs and you like to make new music, look, do you really think that Motley Crue needs to make a new record to go out and sell out arenas? No. But obviously, they like to, and Mickey, he's got a lot of creativity in him, and he wants to get in and obviously make new records and add some, cool new elements to their classic sound, and I think he does that successfully, and it did very well, their last record, their new one. So I think it's a matter of opinion. I think obviously the sales aren't what they used to be, but to say that it's just not worth it, I don't know how the fans actually feel about that. I would never stop. With today's technology, hell, if you're good enough in your home studio, you could record a song every month and release it as a download on the internet.
Sure, you
Why
could.
not?
Right, as long as there isn't a lot of expense involved with getting all your players together, and I know MP3 files and things can be traded back and forth via email or FTP uploads to where if one of your members are located over in, say, Europe and you're in the States, you can send it over to them to add their part and whatnot. But it's still time and effort, to do it.
But it's time and effort. But I feel that I have enough fans worldwide that if I were to make music, on my own and keep the budgets very low, that it could be very worthwhile for me to be very self-sufficient that way.
Sure.
There are labels that are still interested in obviously doing stuff with me. Some of them want me only if I'm going to do the old school stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few forward-thinking labels that are interested in things that I'm, where I'm going as a solo artist. So I think, every artist has their own take on it, and if TNT was a big enough band that we could go out and do 150 shows a year worldwide, or even in the U.S. or wherever, and pull in enough money that every guy in the band was actually, super happy and making a living, then of course we'd probably be one of those bands and would have been one of those nostalgia acts.
Sure.
They're managing to do that over there. But I think that unless you can go out and do that and it's really worthwhile for you, then you got to do something else. I make my living as a musician, and I do a lot of different things, all revolving around music. Some of it is songwriting, some of it is singing, a lot of it is singing, some of it's performing, and many, many, many things. So,
well, being that you are one of these people that I put in a class of having a very distinguishable voice, are you ever approached, or have you taken up any offers for doing like jingle work?
I have done it a lot of times. Sure, it's a great living. It's anonymous, and it's quite fun actually. It's really easy. I live in New York City, so it's super easy for me to jump from all the major jingle houses are here. So, yeah, that's something that I do sometimes quite regularly.
Right.
And, you nail one of those and you're good for the year, more or less.
Yeah, I understand that. Like one of your contemporaries, like Terry Alous of XYZ, I know he does jingle work, and he also does like voiceover work for like Disney or somebody,
Yeah.
So, he evidently does pretty well with that kind of stuff, but yet he continues doing a few shows here and there with, what he calls his XYZ project, So they, I'm just wondering if you have that opportunity or have that, chance to do something like that.
Yeah, there's a few things I'll draw the line that, with the few things I won't do, but, most of the time, if it has to do with my voice and writing and creating, I'll do it. My focus definitely, though, is on, moving forward and finding new ways to express myself musically, and it's going to take some time, but I'm looking at it sort of like a two-pronged attack of where I will probably continue to do projects like Starbreaker. In fact, I have an acoustic album that I just started to work on, which is going to be a retrospective of a lot of my mostly old songs from TNT, Westworld, and so forth. And it's going to be a really cool, very intimate, very sort of organic acoustic record, and showing different colors and reworking some of the songs, slightly different tempos, different keys, even different chords at times, and trying to take all that stuff and still retain the essence of what the song is, but really stripping it down as much as possible.
Well, I'll definitely look forward to that, because that seems to be a popular thing, especially with established artists who do have recognizable songs. They break it down to an acoustic thing. I think probably one of the catalysts behind that is like VH1 Storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a kind of a cool format. I know. Also, my good friend Don Dokken, this past year, he opened up for Queensryche as an acoustic act and played half a dozen Dokken songs acoustic, and that was really done well. So, I'd look forward to hearing a CD from you with acoustic.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's probably going. In a weird way, it's going to symbolize kind of my farewell, I guess you could say, to that era of my career. And I couldn't think of a better way to do it. So the attack going forward is basically going to be focusing on brand new, fresh material on one side, and on the other side, taking advantage of my past.
Sure.
So going out doing, shows, showcasing all the old songs, including not just TNT, but obviously other stuff I've done as well, and possibly projects that fall into that category as well. We're talking about another Westworld record at some point, so that'll be fun. So I think that's the best way to do it, is you don't stop creating something new, and you sort of keep the older, the fans that don't really want to come along for the new stuff,
Right.
I'm lucky in that I think a lot of my fans appreciate almost everything that I do. So I'm lucky that way, even if I change styles dramatically. But not everybody's going to. They might want to hear something a little more classic and traditional sounding.
So on this future release, maybe you haven't even thought about it, but would you release it just under your name, or would you
mean the solo thing?
Yeah,
or
the solo
thing?
stuff.
The solo stuff will just be under my name.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's time for you to get some recognition out there.
Yeah, I think I feel there's a lot of things I'd like to express musically, and I like to sing a lot of different styles. I never really considered myself at least solely a, quote, metal singer, even though I did it in a way. I mean, what we did wasn't really metal. It was kind of a mixture.
A hard melodic rock.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a certain element of what we did that was a little bit different than maybe some of the other bands that were just as poppy as we were.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that was Ronnie's, crazy, fast, wild guitar playing, which had a metal element to it. And I think, my supersonic, crazy high stuff was also very like Rob Halford-ish, but we sort of combined that element with more of a softer, I guess you could say, Journey or Scorpions or even a bit of Queen and other influences that we had in there. So it was a strange mixture, but somehow it works sometimes.
Sure, absolutely. All right, Tony, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us here on the Classic Metal Show again. You're always a welcome guest, and you need to go out and pick up the new Starbreaker, which is entitled Love's Dying Wish. Is that correct? That's right, and it's going to have a U.S. release on November 18th. Just so everybody knows, it's available now. All the major, Amazon and CD Now and all those carry it, but it's at a very high import price. So I do not think it's on iTunes yet, but I imagine that it's going to be after November 18th. Also, I want to mention that if they go to my website, which is TonyHarnell.com, they can purchase the EP of the recent demos that I did as I was working on my solo record, and they sound phenomenal. And some of the songs may appear on the new record recorded differently, and some of them may not. But I thought it was a nice little thing to put out there for now, just to sort of let people be part of the creative process as I move forward. Sure. And you have a MySpace out there as well? MySpace is, the MySpace.com/Tony Harnell online. All right, excellent. All right, well, go visit Tony over at his website or his MySpace and let him know you heard him here on the Classic Metal Show. Go pick up the new Starbreaker, and, you won't be disappointed with that. So before we let you go, Tony, anything else? Just thank you for having me again, Neely. It's been a pleasure. Well, like I said, you're welcome back anytime, and I've always been a big fan of yours personally, as well as TNT and your Westworld stuff and your Starbreaker stuff. And, well, here we are. We got some brand new Starbreaker to play here on the Classic Metal Show. So before we let you go, I may have asked this question to you before. I don't remember if we were asking this question. It's our traditional Classic Metal Show question, but we ask everybody. How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career? I don't think he has, actually. I can't think of a way. I'm sure that maybe there has been a way. I think I had a whiskey with him at the Old Marquee Club in London once. That's about all I can really say about him. Well, any tossing back a drink with Lemmy's story is always good. So yeah. All right, Tony, once again, we appreciate it, and as a tradition, we'll let you pick a closing song off the new Starbreaker release and maybe tell us a quick story about it. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I don't have the CD in front of me, so I have to remember the song titles. Well, I guess you could play the title track, Love's Dying Wish, okay. Which I think is a very cool song. It's one of my favorites. It's got a beautiful chorus, I think, and it's very heavy, and it manages to sort of be heavy and light at the same time. Okay. Lyrically, it's a bit of a story. I don't want to give it all away, but it's people can sort of interpret it how they want to. But I think it describes in many ways, without getting overly political or anything like that. I think it just sort of lightly, in almost I guess you could say almost a spiritual way, describes the state of things in the world today. All right. Well, here it is. This is brand new Starbreaker, and this is Love's Dying Wish, exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show. Thanks for checking out the best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.